In this video, I'll be going over examples for the lesson on solving inequalities by multiplication and division. To start off with, for numbers 1, 2, and 3, we have to solve the inequalities. So for number 1, your instinct is to multiply both sides by 2. But before we do that, we must make sure, is 2 a negative number? Because if it's negative, we reach the exception for inequalities. Luckily, 2 is positive, so we can just go ahead and multiply both sides by 2, and we'll get that x is less than 12. Now let's move on to number 2. We have negative 7y is less than negative 3. It looks like this one we're going to want to multiply by negative 1 to begin with. So let's just get that out of the way at the start. So when I multiply by negative 1, that means that I flip the sign over, and I multiply everything by negative 1. So to start off with, multiplying everything I've got by negative 1, I get that 7y on the left and 3 is on the right. I used to have a less than sign here, but now that is no longer the case. Now it's greater than, because whenever you multiply by a negative, you have to flip the sign. So now I have the inequality 7y is greater than 3, so I can just divide both sides by 7, and I get that y is greater than 3/7. For number 3, I have that negative 2/5 b is greater than or equal to negative 12. Let's start now by multiplying both sides by a positive number, so no need to change any signs, of 5. So if I multiply both sides by 5, I have negative 2b is greater than or equal to negative 60. Now I'll multiply both sides by a positive number, or rather divide them by a positive number. I can multiply by 1/2 or divide by 2. I'm just going to go ahead and divide by 2, and that'll give me negative b is greater than or equal to negative 30. So now that I've done that, I have to take care of this pesky negative that's going on. So when I multiply by negative 1, I have to flip the sign. So on the left, if I multiply by negative 1, I get b. On the right, if I make it negative again, I have a positive 30. And now the sign isn't greater than or equal to, it flips because of the negative, and it's going to be less than or equal to. So there we have our answers for numbers 1, 2, and 3. Also, you really have to note that you have to be careful when working with these inequalities with the negatives, because it's very easy to make a small mistake and your answer can be very wrong. Now for number 4. It's given that the opposite of 1/9 a number x is at most 13. We need to solve the inequality for x. So to start off with, let's interpret this text. The opposite of 1/9 a number x. So the opposite means we put a negative, 1/9 a number x. So that's the opposite of 1/9 a number x. And that is at most 13. Now we have to think about what at most means. That means this value can be 13, but that's only at the very most. Otherwise, it's always going to be values less than 13. So it's less than or equal to 13. That is at most 13. So to start off with, let's multiply both sides by 9, and we get that negative x is less than or equal to 117. I could only do this so simply because 9 was a positive number. Now I'm going to take care of that pesky negative. So when I multiply both sides by negative 1, I also have to flip the sign. So negative 1 times negative x is just x. Negative 1 times 117 is negative 117. And we used to have less than or equal to, but because we multiplied by a negative 1, we're going to flip that to be greater than or equal to. And that's our solution. For problem 5, we have to utilize what we've learned from this lesson on multiplication and division as well as the lesson on addition and subtraction. To solve this linear equality, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. This will give me 3x is greater than 5x minus 10. Now I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. And this will give me that negative 2x is greater than negative 10. And remember, that was just subtraction, so I didn't have to deal with any multiplying by a negative and having to flip a sign. But unfortunately now, that is the case. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide all of this by negative 2. So to start off with, I divide the left by negative 2, which is just going to give me x. I divide the right by negative 2, which is just going to give me 5. But because this number is negative, I have to flip the sign. So I used to have greater than. Now it's going to be less than. So our answer is that x is less than 5.